the June edition of Liftoff. My name is Stephanie Newton. I'm here with my pastor, author, speaker, and conference leader, Brother Jacky Connell.
Hey Steph, it's so good to be able to come and do Liftoff again. It's always an exciting time for me. I look forward for us getting together and talking about leadership and talking about the ministry and church work and how God is working. And we're such a blessed church, and I hope and pray that as we share Liftoff, that it's such an encouragement to those that are watching and those that are listening. And obviously you do a good job of asking me all the questions to kind of get me going. And so today, what are we talking about?
Well, today we're going to talk about publicity and branding.
Oh my goodness,
Publicity and branding. Sometimes churches resist any kind of publicity or branding because they feel like maybe it's not a humble thing to do, or they feel like maybe they're being braggy or showing off. So we're not talking about a braggy show today, but we're talking about a carefully crafted message about a church, who they are and why they exist.
Absolutely. And when you think about branding and publicity, obviously in a church world, a lot of they have this separation from, well, if you do that, it's kind of like a business approach versus a church approach and all that kind of stuff. But I think that we have to be realistic in the world we live in, and not only the world we live in, but how many of you realize that when we think about the word gospel and we're thinking about publicity and branding and getting something out there, you do know the word gospel means good news. And so, did you hear that? Good news. And so if we use the word gospel in reference to good news, obviously it is good and it is news. Well, what do you do with news? Well, you broadcast it, you share it. And if it's good news, my goodness, Stephanie, in the world we live in today, we got a lot of bad publicity and a lot of bad news. Don't you think that the church ought to be a place that we brand our good news and we share and we publicize that? And I think we'll talk about this as we go along, but when I begin to think about this today, I realize that when we think about the Great Commission that we find in the book of Matthew chapter 28 and verse number 18, it says, all power is given unto me in heaven and earth, Jesus said. And what did he tell us to do? He said, go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you, and lo, I'm with you all the way into the end, even the end of the world. But did you notice he said, go and teach? Well, what better motivation of publicizing and communicating and sharing and doing all that than the direct order from our Commander-in-Chief, Jesus Christ, to go do that. So I think it's important that we recognize, Steph, that in the beginning process of this liftoff, that we have been given approval to go out there and do that. And what better thing could we publicize than the good news of the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ in such a way that it radically changes our world? Now, I think that we have to be very careful that we don't do that in a self-glorification way. We don't need to, everything that we do, we need to promote Christ and the kingdom. But at the same time, we have to make sure, and I think the word you used was a carefully crafted approach to that. I like that term, and I think that's so valuable as we think about where we're going with this conversation.
Right. We're totally focusing on getting our gospel message out and presenting the best and most excellent message we can to help people connect to what God is doing in our church. So today let's look at two areas. And so the first I want to talk about is inside the church. Pastor, what's some ways to communicate with visitors and members inside the church that really works?
Well, I think about that. When I looked at this, I thought, man, you know what? If you've got something you want to share, you don't need to keep it to yourself. That's for sure. So when we look inside the church, you've got bulletins, you've got announcement sheets, you've got screens on the wall, you've got projection going on. You've got all kinds of things that we do. We try to do everything we can do to communicate inside the walls of the church. And you know what? I think there's some traditional ways we do that, whether it's through a bulletin that people receive, or announcements that we give from the pulpit, or just kind of screenshots of things going on the screens before church. But I think that we've got a lot of social media opportunities to do that also. This is going to be a real staggering thought, but you know, you've got to meet together to stimulate your communication and your marketing. And one of the things that we do in our church is we believe that we're going to have a trickle-down effect of communication. Now, this is going to be really strange to a lot of people, but every week we go through our calendar as a lead-off team. People would say, "You mean you do that every week, Brother Jacky?" Every week we do that because we want to keep everything out in front of us. We want to make sure we communicate. We have this saying, little communication is frustration, no communication is failure. You've got to communicate it in your leadership team. The right hand needs to know what the left hand's doing. You've got to cast that vision. You've got to do it that way. So communication starts with your leadership team, and then you got to leak it down. And that leaking down process can be, what do you want to communicate this week and events that are coming? And that can be, man, it can go from A to Z, from announcements to inserts to communication in your Sunday school classes, written communication announcement sheets. But you know what? We do something that even takes it further than that. Now, this is a little bit weird, but we do a thing called the John Ministry. And I'm just going to kind of tell you a little bit about that. We put up every month in the bathrooms, over the urinals, and right there at the stalls, we have these little containers that we have, and we slide the announcement sheet in those in the bathroom, so that while you're visiting the bathroom, you have something to read while you're there. And that's communicating inside the church, called the John Ministry. And I'm telling you, it works, man. It's a big deal. It's effective. And so we go all the way from the pulpit step to the life discovery announcement sheets to the bathroom. We try to do all we can do with that. Is that crazy?
No, I think it's a very effective way to get people to know what's going on in your church.
Yeah, while you're resting, you can read. Give you something to do inside the church. But I just think that we try to do a thorough job of communicating, marketing, whatever we're going to be doing and however we're going to do that. We try to go beyond the call of duty to make sure we communicate effectively.
Absolutely, and hopefully that encourages you to think outside the box
In ways to get communication out to your visitors and members.
Absolutely.
So now that we've talked about inside the church,
Let's talk about outside the church. Is it okay for a church to publicize their events or their sermons or their programs outside of the church? And let's talk about in there some social media, newspaper, radio, community events. Let's kind of hit it all.
Well, you know, one of the things that we don't have an inside secret here. If all we're going to do is communicate it inside the group, then I think we're defeating the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish as a church. And one of the things that we do that's intentional is we try to promote this thought. We want to make ourselves known. And we deliberately do that. A lot of reasons for that, but number one is we're kind of hid where we are. You know, you have to almost have a helicopter to fly by to see where we are. So we have to intentionally do everything that we do to make ourselves known. Well, we go all the way from radio to, social media processes to you name it. We try to look at the big picture of all of that. But I want to tell the people that are listening that you need to brainstorm how you're going to get your message out. It can be through newspaper. It can be, use all the avenues. Use everything you can use to get that out there. Now, here's a thought, and I want you to listen to it. I wrote it down. There's a book. Now, I have a lot of Billy Graham books in my office. The late Dr. Billy Graham, I loved his ministry. And there's biographies and books written about him and written by him in my office. But there is a book that's called The Legacy of a Couple, Ruth and Billy Graham. And on page 25, I've got it memorized. On page 25, in that book, they quote Dr. Billy Graham saying this: "The best message deserves the best marketing." Bottom of page 25 in that book. And he made that statement years ago. Years ago. The best message deserves the best marketing. Back when Dr. Billy Graham began the ministry, they would rent airplanes to fly the banners around the city that would talk about the crusade that was coming. And he caught a lot of flack by doing that in that day that he was promoting this. And his response to that was, the best message deserves the best marketing. And I'm telling you, I'm in agreement with that we've got the greatest message on planet Earth. And you need to go to your table, your think tank table, in your churches, in your areas, and man, you need to just talk about how are we going to market this. Now, that sounds a little businesslike, but my goodness, we need to do that. We need to brainstorm and talk about that. Let me just share this with you. It's not just about marketing who your church is. We're trying to get the message of Jesus Christ out to a lost and dying world. And I think all of you would agree that there's a lot of cults that are promoting and marketing, and there is a lot of things going on in the culture today that's marketing the wrong message, and they're spending gobs of money trying to do that. While at the same time, we've got the answer. We've got the message. We've got this, and we're almost like we're intimidated by thinking, oh my goodness, people may get the wrong idea if we start doing that. Well, I think that we need to really put the eggs in that basket and give some thought as to how we do that. And I just want to go back and say, Steph, it's not just about marketing the name of your church, but we kind of break it down too, in way of branding and marketing what we're doing. We want people to know what our ministries are doing here. Now we may do a whole big deal on children's ministry. We may do a big deal on recreation ministry. Whatever is a big deal going on at that time, we want to market the events so that we can get people to attend those events so that we have an opportunity to share the message. So if you've got a big event coming up, man, tell people that it's happening and market that event and get them on the campus of your church or get them to the event. And we want to make sure that when we get them there that we share the message. And so I just think that as we think about this, that the church, I'm going to make this statement, needs to do a better job branding and marketing what they're doing.
Absolutely. I think the worst message is no marketing, no branding at all. I think it sends a message that there's nothing going on or there's nothing special about the church as opposed to another agency or another gathering. But also it sends a message that we're inclusive, that people are not welcome.
Absolutely.
So I think projecting the fact that it is a great message and we want you to hear it. We want you to experience a life change like we've had, and that you're welcome here.
Absolutely.
We want you here is a really important part of the message.
Yeah, we're not in the Secret Service business. We're not trying to keep it to ourselves. And I think the message, Stephanie, in regards to what you just said is y'all come is a great message for the church. And, you know, my goal is, and I think we do a really good job with that, is that you go to YouTube channels, you open a magazine where in it, there's articles in the paper about what we're doing. There's spots on the radio that sends the message, and I mean, it just goes on forever and ever and ever. And I cannot tell you how many people come up to me that when I say, hey, I'm Brother Jacky, I'm the pastor of Eden Westside, they say this to me: I've heard about your church. Well, how'd you hear about the church? Well, I was reading an article, I heard it on the radio, or whatever it may be. And I just think that's what that's all about. You have to become known. You have to make an intentional effort to become known. We're not here to say, y'all come. That's not the work of the church. We're not here to say, y'all come. We're here to go, hey, we want to reach out there to you and give you an invitation, let you know who we are, what we're about, what's going on, so that you will come. You know, there's people that have this mindset, Stephanie, and it just drives me crazy. I can't stand it. It's awful. I'm sorry if you're one of those people. But I've had people say to me, well, people know where the church is. If they want to come, they'll come. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, no, what a terrible attitude.
It is terrible.
What a terrible attitude to go, well, you know, they know where we are. If they want them to come, they'll come. No, don't ever do that. Listen, be intentional in your branding. Be intentional in your marketing. And I want to go back to that branding thing. That is, you've got to get some type of statements about who you are and what your church is all about. You know, ours is Eden Westside is a place to heal, help, and call home. Well, that's what we want people to know. We're here to help you in your pain, your hurting. You can come here and heal. And man, when you heal, you can help, get involved, and you can call this place your home. What a great, catchy thought. And that's for anybody. So you got to make sure that you're getting your brand out there, who you are, what your ministry about, and market that, push that, get that communicated out. And I promise you'll be glad you did that.
Well, you've heard a few of the ways that our church does some out-of-the-box things. Everything from posting events on the John Ministry to websites, Facebook Live, this kind of thing, to kind of promote our message. So one thing I want to encourage you to do as you're thinking about publicity and branding is to get out of the box. Do a well-crafted
Absolutely.
message. Do the best that you can for what you've got. I think sometimes as churches we tend to kind of slide through and just do enough, but it's an excellent message and it deserves the best.
Absolutely. And I like what you said there, Steph, is getting out of the box. You know, you may not be able to do everything. That takes time to build and to evolve to that. But my goodness, get together with your leadership team and go, what can we do? Start somewhere in your marketing, and don't be afraid to do that. It's not a bad idea. It's not somebody goes, oh my goodness, you talk about that, it's almost from the devil. No, it's not. God wants us to share the gospel and to make Christ known, and man, that's what we're here for. So get together with a group, brainstorm some ideas, share some things, get out there and make it happen. I just wanted to wrap up by saying that, there's a particular church that's kind of been sitting there. And they got, they went through some changes, and they got a new pastor, and I was riding down the road the other day and I saw one of their church signs in somebody's yard that just had their sign there in one of those little signs you stick up in the yard. And I thought, way to go, man. The church has been sitting there for years and really doing nothing. But man, I was riding by, I looked over there, and there was one of their signs in somebody's yard. And I thought, that's great. You know, they got a sign in somebody's yard, I'm assuming, that goes to that church where that when people drive by, they can look over there and there's that sign and it says something. It says, hey, something's happening in our church. And I think marketing is that message. Something good is happening at our church and we want you to come and be a part of it. So man, get out there and brainstorm and start somewhere, do something. Send the message that God is up to something where you go to church, in your ministry, in your area, push it, push it, push it. You'll be glad you did.
Well, there you have it. I hope that you've been inspired by our lift off today and that you'll take some time to sit down, as Pastor was saying, brainstorm with your team and see what God has for you in store with publicity and branding. If you enjoyed our lift off today, we'd love for you to share lift off on your social media platforms. Don't forget to look for us at JC Impact at YouTube and jcimpact.org. Thanks for joining us today.
God bless you. We'll talk to you next time.